I'm Marty Murphy, and I'm honored to introduce to you two very dear friends who are doing something very important, not only about some stem cell biology, but now its translation truly into clinical medicine. Some 30 years ago, as a consequence of the advent and advantages that have been made by many laboratory investigators, the new field of stem cell biology was burgeoning, but there was no real common home for the publications, the peer-reviewed publications that needed to be reviewed by other scientists so that the field could more rapidly advance. It was therefore 30 years ago that myself and a number of other colleagues started a journal entitled Stem Cells, almost 30 years ago. Well, now 30 years hence, that laboratory investigational journal has burgeoned and grown to become truly the premier journal in stem cell biology. But there's more to it now than just a stem cells laboratory journal. And that's why we'd like to have this conversation. A conversation that I would submit is also the beginnings of a celebration. And as I said, I'm honored to be with two dear friends, Miodrag Stojkovic, who is the editor of the journal Stem Cells, and my good friend Tony Atala, who is now going to be the new editor of the new journal, Stem Cells Translational Medicine. Tony and Miodrag, first of all, let me on behalf of my colleagues and your colleagues worldwide express our gratitude for the dedication and commitment you've had to your science and to your patients, but also to the importance of the peer-reviewed publication, because after all, it is the peer-reviewed publication that's the currency of science. Perhaps maybe I would begin asking you, Miodrag, in your experience as the editor of Stem Cells, what changes have you seen, not only in the journal, but also in the field, with the intention of answering the question, why do you think there's a need for a new journal?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, because we recognize, especially in the last 15 years, the huge development in the stem cell research, and this is not only more or less basic research, which is understanding the signaling pathways, early development, early differentiation, and if I remember, because when I started with isolation of embryonic stem cells, was the more or less our pioneering work, how to isolate stem cells, how to keep them in a plastic dish, to keep them more or less happy, and to obtain the cells which we need for what is the next step, and this is a translation.
Well, in fact, you were one of the first ones really to develop early stem cell lines.
Yeah, I was, I must say, privileged that I had this opportunity to work in the United Kingdom. And there we were able to isolate stem cells, new lines, also using arrested embryos. And that was the, I think, early beginning to understand these first steps, how to keep multi and pluripotent stem cell in the plastic dish, and how to convince these pluripotent and multipotent stem cells to get functional, mature cell type, which we need for tissue reparation, or for cell transplantation, or for regenerative medicine. And this is, back to your question, this is the need now. This is the need to move from this pioneering work, lab work, which we already have in our hands, and to translate these results and to bring this stem cell therapy faster from bench to bedside.
30 years ago, this was the first issue of the journal Stem Cells. And if we look at it, Tony, it really almost is now reflecting of a pamphlet in terms of its size. In terms of the content, it was, and still remains, very valid and very strong, at that time, pioneering research. 30 years later, here's an issue, and of course it comes out every month, an issue of the journal Stem Cells as it currently is published. So in a sense, Miodrag, we're going from the prototype to this contemporary journal that's robust and has high impact papers. But now, Tony, It's now, in a sense, Miodrag is looking and saying to you as his brother, fraternally speaking, now we need that next vital step, taking it from the superb support that bench research continues to contribute, but now taking it not only with a leap of faith, but evidence-based into actually clinical translation.
Yes, you know, of course, the pioneering work that has been done in the field of stem cells over the last 30 years allows us to be where we are today. And the work is so important because that really established the basis for what can be done today for us to translate these technologies to the clinic. If we did not have today that wonderful, strong base of publications that actually established the field for us and in fact led us to the future, to where we are today, we couldn't do what we're about to start today, which is this new journal, this wonderful concept that you had to actually start bringing together some of these technologies now to get them to the clinic. And so it is a natural transition of the field. Some may say, wow, it took 30 years to get us here. Well, we have to remember this is an entirely new field, the field of stem cells, and like other fields, like cell biology or biochemistry, this is really an entirely new field. So to be here 30 years later is actually quite an accomplishment, to say we now have the basis for us to have the solid foundation to start bringing these technologies to patients, and then to have yet another forum for us to be able to collaborate together with our authors, with our editorial board, with our supporters, all around, to be able to bring this to a new level today about our patients and our clinical translation.
That's a wonderful comment, Tony, and that you've just said in a way that what you're doing is creating yet another home. The home that Stem Cells, the original journal, and for 30 years the premier journal in the field, has provided a home for authors and a place, a locus for editors and editorial board members to contribute through their peer review. Now there's a need that you're fulfilling with the new journal, Stem Cells Translational Medicine, to create this new locus, this new home for those papers, for those authors who want not only a need to have strict peer review of their best work, but to have it done expeditiously and to then be able to have it promulgated globally in the very best and fastest fashion. Miodrag, I know as editor of Stem Cells, you've been relentless in your pursuit of speed of both the review process and, of course, then of the publication, if you will, the production process. What is the current time of the gestation from receipt of a paper until actually a decision by you as the editor is made?
Yeah, at the moment it's between 11 and 12 days, I think, which is very, very fast. And this is very helpful to all our authors, scientists, people who submit the manuscript to Stem Cells, because the first decision is the most important, whether the manuscript could be sent for external evaluation or should be submitted elsewhere. And I think this is a helpful to scientists not, I must say, not to waste their time, or if it's the manuscript is well, because it's a good one. And I can give you also this detail. We have at the moment something like between 15 and 17 acceptance manuscripts, acceptance ratio. So that means that the other manuscript could be submitted elsewhere, and this gives the scientists the plenty, I would say, the time to rethink the strategy or to improve the manuscript.
So that 15 to 17% of submitted manuscripts are actually accepted and published, but the authors know of that acceptance very quickly. Yes. And that's very important. Now, some of those manuscripts in Stem Cells, if I'm not mistaken, that have not been accepted for publication are, in the opinion of the editorial board, highly regarded, but they're not dealing with really pure laboratory bench research. Rather, they're dealing with some regenerative medicine or translational medicine issues.
That's right.
And the home that has been created in the journal Stem Cells was not the optimal home, the, if you will, adequate home for those papers, and you encourage them to be submitted to other journals. But now that encouragement can be fraternally shared by saying Dr. Atala's journal, Stem Cells Translational Medicine, is in fact the ideal place for some of those papers that are considered very good, but needed the translational medicine actually home. So Tony, you and Miodrag, for not only reasons of friendship, but also now for collaboration, will be working, if I understand correctly, very closely together in identifying the very best journal for the very best publications.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to this working collaboration and this relationship. Because in reality, if you look around, there is no home today for the papers which are based on this field that are translational. So in a way, we are in a parallel path as we were 30 years ago, where there was no home for a lot of these stem cell papers that were coming out in that new arising field back then. Here we are 30 years later doing the same thing. We need a home for these publications, these peer-reviewed, excellent publications that deal with the translational aspect of stem cells and regenerative medicine.
You know, just as it was necessary 3 decades ago to have individuals with vision that were in themselves pioneering and also that had courage. And that really bespeaks the editorial board of the journal Stem Cells 30 years ago. We also had the need for sponsorship in the true sense of a sponsor, an individual who is willing to make a contribution of not only their time, but also perhaps their treasury, to be able to foster the growth of a new idea to become a new reality. We need that now with the new journal, don't we, Tony? And we also have right to be grateful already for the pioneering, visionary, and yes, perhaps rightfully so, courageous grant that you've recently received. And maybe you'd tell us about the California Institute of Regenerative Medicine's significant grant that the journal has received.
Well, this is a great accomplishment, really, for the journal Stem Cells Translational Medicine to have already the basis and support, the initial financial support that we received through a grant from the California Institute for Regenerative Medicine. They also saw a need for a journal of this type, a journal that would be home to these peer-reviewed publications. So we've been very fortunate and very thankful to that initial grant. And that's a major thing. Many publishers competed for this, as you know, and there were many journals that wanted to receive this grant from CIRM, but I think everyone recognized the tradition for excellence that the publisher has had for this enterprise called Stem Cells, and now it was just a natural transition to bring that expertise and that love for the field that stem cells translational medicine can also benefit from.
Alphamed Press is very proud to have been the recipient of that grant as the publisher of Stem Cells and of Stem Cells Translational Medicine. And it's so proud and so grateful to you, Miodrag, and you, Tony, for your leadership. And I know that there's an appeal that we need to mention and are proud to do so, to extend our hands in partnership with other potential sponsors. The CIRM grant, as impactful as it is a seed grant. And that's I thought it was very venturesome on behalf of CIRM to give this 3-year seed grant with the intention of now attracting further sponsors, further support, because it's already passed this very high bar of peer review within the California Institute of Regenerative Medicine peer review system, having, as you said, Tony, competed successfully against global publishers. The reason being because stem cells, the original stem cells, the publisher Alphabet Press, it has a long-standing, 3-decade commitment to fostering this field. It also, I think, is a salute to you, Tony, in that you are the founding editor. You're shaping your editorial board. You're encouraging authors to submit their very finest papers. You're, in fact, doing what you've done from the bench and from your patient's bedside. You're igniting the field further.
Well, thank you for saying that, Marty. I think the point that you made initially about this seed grant is important to expand upon, because I just want to make the point that the seed grant, even though it's for 3 years, is nothing more than just a seed grant.
Yeah.
So even though it's for a 3-year grant, we still need to encourage sponsorships that can come into the journal to make sure that we are able to start on solid ground, and that we can maintain that solid ground into the future. So that additional sponsorship would be extremely important for the success of the journal long term. And that sponsorship, that initial sponsorship from CIRM has been instrumental, of course, in getting the journal off the ground, but we still needed that additional sponsorship these first 3 years that will make it succeed. And I think the members of the editorial board that have come on board already and have already made a commitment realize that this journal will indeed be the standard bearer for the field of translational medicine. And they have committed their expertise, and we're very, very fortunate to have the leaders of the field internationally who have really gotten behind this journal and have made a commitment to maintain the excellence for which stem cells is known for, and that we will maintain that also for stem cells translational medicine.
Thanks, Tony.
I completely agree with Tony, because the list is very impressive, the members of editorial board, the new journal. And I believe the new journal also opened new doors and new possibilities also, I will say, to people who are, well, rather very skeptical a couple of years ago about the development in stem cell research field, and I'm speaking exactly about pharmaceutical companies, because you probably remember 5-6 years ago, they were a bit skeptical about application of stem cells. Now we have more and more huge, big pharmaceutical companies are using stem cells to learn something about pathogenesis of some inherited or non-inherited human diseases, to develop new screening methods for drug development, for instance, new chemicals. And this is what I personally see as also one of the achievement of the stem cells, and also continuation with the stem cell translational medicine, because actually they show these people that stem cells are needed. And not only, we don't speak only about the regenerative medicine, we speak about the stem cells as a tool to also to learn something about our own body, because using the stem cells in a plastic dish, we are learning plenty of things about endogenous stem cells, how to mobilize them, how to find them, how to improve their function if then some cells need to be replaced. And this makes me personally very, very happy, because in the past they had a limited number of people which are used or using the stem cells. Meanwhile, many, many people who are not obviously stem cell biologists, or somebody who developed the technique how to use stem cell, how to isolate them, how to keep them growing, or to differentiate them, are using stem cells to fight plenty of diseases.
So really stem cells is come of age in many ways. And when big pharmaceutical companies, as you rightfully acknowledge, Miodrag, when they are recognizing that they need to have a placement within their company for stem cell research and perhaps drug development, you know that it's come essentially to a new state or a new level of maturation. Thinking about the tagline, Tony, that you gave stem cells translational medicine, I'm reading it off of one of the advertisements announcing a new high-impact, peer-reviewed journal bridging stem cell research and clinical trials. And that says it truly all. And the all is all about patients. Those clinical trials, judiciously done, with high ethical values, with rigorous scientific oversight, they're the ones, Tony, they're going to bring all of our work to what the fruition is all about, which is that person who's looking to you two and to your editorial boards and to your authors. Those patients are looking to you for renewal of their hope. Tony, I know you're very close to your patients. Could you just share with us how you feel? I mean, personally, not only as a physician and as a physician scientist, but as a humanist. How do you feel about the journal and its opportunity to foster that growth, to enhance that speed of delivery to that patient who looks to you for hope?
You know, it's so interesting because, as you know, as physicians and as healthcare providers, we're constantly limited by what we can do. You know, there's just not enough technologies out there. We don't have all the right tools. And we have been, for decades in medicine, looking at techniques that allow us to manage disease. Whereas in reality, with stem cells and cell therapy and regenerative medicine, for the very first time, we have an opportunity to not just manage disease, but also to cure it. And so the challenge for us is, how can we make sure that these technologies are translated in the right manner, that the clinical trials are done correctly, that patient safety is preserved, that the bioprocessing that goes into it is done correctly. And we need to share that information. Information sharing, the knowledge that we will gain, will allow us to learn from each other and to be sure that we can accelerate the development of these technologies, not just for our specific projects, but also for the whole field in general. And that's really where the journal comes in. The journal really will play such a critical role to make sure that that information can be disseminated correctly and will help us get to the real goal of what this field is all about, to be able to benefit patients long term.
I don't know that it could be said any better or with stronger passion than you just shared it. And that's why you're willing and desirous to devote yourself and to donate your expertise and your priceless time to fostering that which it's all about, which is helping patients. And why fraternally with Miodrag doing what you've been doing equally well for more than 30 years as well, taking concepts, bringing them not just into a petri dish, but actually creating cell lines that could show that we have stem cell lineages with self-perpetuating possibilities, truly immortalized cells that themselves remain immortal. Yes. That having been a pioneer in that field, breaking through, which heretofore was thought to be impossible, now the impossible is possible and is becoming so because of the translational aspects of the actual research to which you and the members of your editorial boards and to all of your authors have contributed so mightily. I know that I feel really blessed and really lucky to count both of you as dear friends, and that you allow me to consider myself your colleague does me a greater justice than I know I deserve, but I want to thank you for that as well. Most importantly, I thank you. I thank you for your courage, for your standing up and saying, this is something not only that is the right thing to do, to lead journals as editors, but it is the thing that you must do.
Yeah, I think the happiness is ours. I mean, this is more than privilege to read all these first-class papers, you know, to create to have an influence on the whole stem cell research field, and now with translation application more, put them again closer to our patients, and that makes you also very, very proud, be part. And with the new journal, I will call this, with a new member of the family, of the stem cell family, we are getting closer actually to close the circle, because we are starting with the basic science. Now we would like to move and really to use this, what we learned in the lab, for benefits, as Anthony told already, of our patients. And this is the great opportunity to promote this kind of, as you already mentioned, ethical research, because it is very important to use this journal, and this journal should be used also for our patients. They have to be explained where we are and where we are going and what we are doing, why we are doing what we are doing. So this is for them also using the stem cell homepage, Stem Cell Translational Medicine, also nice a website of Stem Cell Translational Medicine, a stem cell portal also, which is a part of our family. It's an excellent place that they can pick up information what they need actually. So that's it's an information which is based on scientific facts.
Thanks, Miodrag. Tony, any last thoughts?
Marty, it's a pleasure to embark on this wonderful project. It's going to be great working with Miodrag and with you, and I thank you for all the leadership you have provided.
Well, it's been a great conversation, and I promised you that at the outset that we would not only be conversive, but that we would be celebratory. There is reason, there is justifiable cause for celebration. And in fact, in these two wonderful colleagues, I think you see it. The kind of dedication and commitment to excellence that their careers reflect are exactly the reason why these two journals will continue to foster not only the growth of the field, but continue to foster the hope that cancer patients and patients of a number of catastrophic diseases have reason to express hopefulness in the work of these fine researchers and these two dedicated editors. On behalf of AlphaMed Press and all of our colleagues who work hard to produce these journals in the best possible way, thank you.